A breath of fresh air. It's Sunday Sanctuary with Petra Bagust.
Breaks my soul in crowd. My mind is moving slow. Far from all I know. Give me time to know. My mind is moving slow.
Welcome to Sunday Sanctuary and an introduction to the spiritual practice of silence. Whoa, that sounds big, but don't worry because we're doing it together. So allow me to welcome you. E ngā manu, e ngā reo, mai ngā hauewha, tatu mai nei ki te manga o tēnei rākau whakaruru hau. Tau mai nei ki tēnei kaupapa e pāpaho atu nei ki a koutou araha ko Sunday Sanctuary. Ko Petra Bagust tēnei e rere ana ngā mihi ki a koutou katoa. So to everyone from each corner of our beautiful country, come, rest on the branch of this sheltered tree. Welcome to this project, this space that is Sunday Sanctuary. I'm Petra Bagust and I acknowledge each and every one of you. An introduction to the spiritual practice of silence. Let's unpack that together because my hope is that you'll get some ideas, enlightenment, encouragement from this episode to give silence a go, and then maybe to give it another go, and then maybe to go easy on yourself as you practice it. But maybe you've already had a go at practicing it and you're going, no, it's just too hard, I can't do it. Well, join me because that's how I often feel. And yet there's something inside of me that wants this. I want some silence. And then I have to ask myself, what is silence? Because it's fair to say that we can feel daunted by the idea of silence. It seems so unattainable. We live in such a busy, busy world, and yet every generation before us feels the same. And look, let's be practical. Are you going to get away on a 6-day silent retreat? Well, that's near impossible. What about being silent every morning for a period of time? That sounds impractical, and yet we all know that our brains are overstimulated and that silence perhaps has something to offer that is beautiful and good, and my friends, it is free. So that begs the question, what is silence? How is it spiritual? How might I engage with it? And I'm hoping that today we discover more together and discover some practical ways and ideas to engage with silence, because I think we'll discover that silence is more than the absence of sound. What about visual silence? How could we create moments of 3-dimensional or 4-dimensional silence? So here we go. I hope that after listening to this and in the days that follow, like this is my hope for myself, so it's my hope for you too, that silence could become more like breathing and less like mountain climbing in the rain wearing wedges. And that's because that analogy sort of is how I feel about silence. I just feel like I'm slipping and sliding and it's a bad idea and I can't do it and I've got no skills. So even on a personality level, I'm like a enthusiastic, let's go, let's try this. Oh yeah, that's a great idea, let's go. So I'm a noisy, busy person. And yet in the breathing, in the stilling, in the quietening of who I am, there's something that just loves the idea of silence and loves the moments that I've managed to hold on to. So let's go forward together today and give it a go. Even coming here today, I was working at home this morning and I thought, we're doing a silence podcast and I'm going to be in the studio. I need to get outside in nature. I need to take a moment. And I was walking up my path and I saw this beautiful leaf skeleton and I'm like, isn't nature amazing? Isn't it wondrous? And then I'm texting people and I've got to text this other person and I need to reply to that text and oh my goodness, the dog is pulling me this way and now the dog has pooped and I need to pick it up. And so it was like this microcosm of my life. I've got this wonderful intention to take a moment to pause, to create space. And yet here I am on a busy road, frustrated with my dog, sick of myself and my phone and all my to-do list. And still in that reality, I chose, after the frustration, after being rained on, to sit on a seat and to breathe and to be and to notice the clouds, the rain. just the texture of the air that I was breathing. And I just let that be enough. And it was small, and it was real, and it was compromised, but it was good. So I invite you today to hop on the train and let's get some silence into us.
Awe, wonder, surprise, incredulity, admiration, marvel at the world we live in. It's Sunday Sanctuary with Petra Bagust.
On Sunday Sanctuary, we like to start with a moment of awe. And this one is about going inside an anechoic chamber. What's that, you say? Well, anechoic means not echoing. So this kind of a chamber absorbs all sound. There's no reverberation. It's like as close to pure silence as you could hope to get.
You can see from the room we have these fiberglass wedges placed strategically like this to absorb the sound as it comes in. And as that kinetic energy and the sound waves hit those wedges, those sound waves are transferred into heat.
It's so weird.
It's
so weird. It's almost like uncomfortable. I'm going to do a quick little test and walk backwards as I talk to see how the volume changes in my voice, because the amount of echo reaching the camera and the amount of audio and sound waves reaching it will change as I get further back, especially the fact that there is literally nothing to reverberate it and concentrate it to you. So the level of audio, even though I've stayed the same, will probably feel quite different. I honestly find it really peaceful. When I first came in here, I felt really disoriented. I'm also an anxious person, so it was just like going from a state of being that you're used to into a state that your brain isn't used to processing, like immediately let off my fight or flight. But now when I sit in silence, it feels really calming. I was told to keep my phone on me because if I needed something, they most definitely wouldn't be able to hear me. After all, the chamber is actually a room within a room, a cement cube within the building on top of the fiberglass paneling to keep as much sound from both entering or exiting the room. I wasn't gonna hear anybody and they weren't gonna hear me. After about 30 minutes of silence, I became extremely aware of my body. I can hear a lot of ringing in my ear, which kind of freaks me out. I just hear like, Literally, I can hear noises inside my head that are just like. While it felt like the pressure had increased in my ear, it was actually the opposite effect. In the real world, our ears are constantly hearing some sound with pressure. In the anechoic room, the pressure is gone. So my ears were actually experiencing less pressure. It's definitely a different state of being to remove the sound, but you start to sort of acclimatize to it. I feel more physically in tune with what's happening to me. Other parts of my body, my attention on those parts is heightened. So weird. It's so crazy.
Ooh, so cool. Imagine being in a space where there was no sound getting in or out and you shut your sound making systems off, hearing your body. It's so cool. There's an anechoic chamber at the University of Auckland and I got to go in it once when we were filming. If anyone ever offers you an anechoic chamber opportunity, say yes. I'd love us now to do what we do each time, which is called examine. And it's the sense of taking a look, perhaps taking a look back or forward or taking a look in. So let's perhaps go in today. And my invitation to you right now is to notice where you are in the world. Maybe you just look around. Maybe you see something new. Maybe you extend your eyes out beyond what you normally notice. If you're outside, maybe raise your gaze or lower it. And if you're inside, don't notice what needs to be done, but look with eyes to see something anew. And when you're comfortable, perhaps you would take your gaze inside to your lungs, to your heart space, and you would allow yourself to breathe in deeply. Ha kiroto. And exhale. Ha kiwaho. And as you breathe in and breathe out, maybe your gaze softens. Maybe you close your eyes and allow your body to be fed by your breath. Maybe you're grateful for this moment of stillness, whatever you've been doing or thinking or approaching, just to take a moment to pause and breathe. Allow me to read to you from Strawn Coleman's Prayer Volume 3. As you breathe in deeply and exhale completely, when I stop and wait, I discover you over in some unnoticed place, doing what I hadn't asked, being God despite me. Allow your breath to soothe your mind, your heart, your body. Allow it to feed you. May you have the courage to stop, to breathe, and to look further out, to find God doing beautiful things in the places you're not yet looking, disempowering chaos, quietly trusting in the unbreakable arc of love. Hakiroto. Hakiwaho. Thanks for taking a moment with me.
It's the Sacred Text on Sunday Sanctuary with Petra Bagust.
Next up, I'll be chatting with the spiritual director, Rachel Kitchens. But first, we decided to kick off our kōrero today with a sacred text. And what we've chosen is a song by Kiwi indie rock band, The Beths. Yes, that's right, The Beths. It's called Silence is Golden. And as a podcast, we don't have the rights to play this song for you because that's a bit of a palaver. But if you like, feel free to pause the episode and have a listen to the song on YouTube or Spotify and come back. It's a goodie. So it's called Silence is Golden by The Beths. And for those of you who are just going to stick with us, I'll read you some of the lyrics. I wish that I could freeze time, go to the wild, soak up the quiet till I'm dripping wet with it. Then I would drive home, go to my room, wring myself out. That would be the end of it. Instead, it's white noise, sufferingly loud. It's wearing me down. I'm up to my ears in it. It's like a wave break into my head again and again. How are you not hearing it? Now, if you're familiar with the song, it's actually really upbeat. It's loud and rocky. Oh, so encapsulates the paradox that we're talking about on this episode of Sunday Sanctuary. And it is my pleasure to be speaking now with Rev Rachel Kitchens, who is a spiritual director and a mum of 3. She is I guess, a reverend in the Anglican Māori Church. That's of note, and is also an American who calls New Zealand home after spending 13 years here. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's such a joy. Hey, look, like I was just saying then, that song, there's this paradox, right? We've got this rock tune. We've got this sort of scream for attention to silence.
Yes. Isn't it amazing? I think she's going for it, isn't she?
Yeah.
She's just having fun, but also screaming and saying, ugh, what can I do here?
So to talk, even the idea like of this podcast, we're talking about silence, right?
Yes.
Something we crave. Let's talk about it.
Yes.
So listening to that song, is there a bit for you that just makes you go, like any sound will set me off? I'm going to hurl now, strapped to my sheet and into the ride. Like, somebody please let me off. Like this idea that we have been strapped into noise, or that actually silence has been stolen or taken from us.
Yes, that's right. Yes. There's a sense of, it's just, there's a sense of it's like a wave break into my head and again, as she says. That's one of my favorite parts there that she mentions. And it feels like it's a hard thing to have silence in our culture and our world today.
Because the noise is happening to us, eh?
It's happening to us. Yeah, we're almost like sometimes I find we're a victim to it, to the noise, and we can't get out. There's something that we felt stuck into that space, and it's done to us in some ways.
And we're doing it to ourselves.
That's right.
Not in a critical, judgy way, but we are creating a lot of noise. But I mean, I think about the appliances I have that buzz and
That's right.
whir, and I'm like, make them all turn off.
That's right. Yes. I mean, I have this very busy road that I live on, and actually I go for walks in the morning, and I have contemplated, and in fact, I have done it multiple times, putting earplugs in on my walk. People put iPods in to have music to distract from the sound of the road noise. But I'm like, I just want to hear just nothing, or I want to hear my heartbeat just inside me.
So maybe that is the, like, underneath the railing against the noise is this deeper, deeper, deeper desire for silence.
Absolutely. Yes.
What's your personal experience? Like what's the dance you've done with
Yes,
silence living on a busy road?
Yes. So for me, as a mom of 3, it's been, difficult. I had 3 under the age of 4. So I had a 3.5-year-old, an 18-month-old, and then a newborn. So that was difficult. I had a person who was sort of a mentor and a sort of a spiritual director at the time. She was a Catholic nun. And I said, I just don't have any silence. It actually doesn't exist. Is that okay? Like, I can't enter into it the way maybe I would have wanted to. And she said, it's okay. You can just be here in the moment, feeding your baby in the middle of the night. Those can be quiet and silent times.
Or silent enough.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, there are moments of that. And I for me, in my journey of silence, I went to someone who said, is it okay for you to just be here and not do anything? And that was sort of like, wait, what? That was a surprise. She gave me permission to be with her. So it was actually, there was a companion, but it was still and it was quiet. And she held that space for me. And we did. We did it for 5 minutes. And then later we did it for 10 minutes. And it was a very special time.
It's amazing how memorable that is.
It is. It is.
Because it reminds me, we had, as a couple, Hamish and I had another couple over, and it was maybe Sunday lunch, and it was sunny, and we're sitting on the deck. And I think I said, why don't we be, I think one of them, Nick, might have said, something about silence or something about doing silence with someone. And I was like, oh, wow, that sounds so interesting. And I said, why don't we do it now?
Wow.
And the 4 of us just held silence for maybe 5 minutes. Maybe it was 5 or 10. But it's very memorable.
Very memorable.
And at the end, I think, again, Nick might have said, well, that was profound.
Yes.
That was just a beautiful experience.
Yes. And it is sort of a mystery. What happens there? We don't know. There's something that it felt, perhaps like you did, the energy changed. There was a shift. Something was present. I can't name it, but it felt rich, and we shared it. That's powerful.
Yeah, I wonder if the sharing of it makes it, because you think about, like, this reminds me of the minutes silence that we have at sports games or in memory of people. They're a profound communal experience.
Yes.
If we allow them to be.
That's right.
And we don't have to.
No.
You know, a phone might beep or somebody might cough or somebody doesn't realize the silence has started. But man, I relish those minutes of silence.
Yes.
I wish them more. Like, I wish they were a little bit longer than a minute.
That's right. And they feel deep. There's a depth to, as you say, we're diving into something that's held for us. There's a mystery. Something's happening.
Ooh, I like it. So what does silence do to us then? Like, if we dig down into this idea of silence or stillness, what does it do to us?
Yes. Well, I think if we allow it to, it creates space where it can actually take some things away. And so it can take away mental clutter. It can take that away. It can take away this belief that I am what I do. So it can be almost an act of resistance, an act of saying, I'm just going to stop, and that's okay. So it can be this act of resistance. And then it can take away desires that actually are what I would say maybe disordered desires.
Ooh.
So they make space for saying, actually, I'm not going to do that thing that I do when I get bored or I get a bit lost or tired. I'm actually going to just pause and not pick up the phone.
Isn't that amazing, though, if you allow yourself to see what you do? Interesting to have a name for it, disordered desires, because I know that when I don't know what to cook, when I don't know what to do next, when I'm feeling a bit bored, I turn to these things. Like I turn to chocolate, I turn to my phone, I turn to some sort of distraction, which in and of itself isn't a bad thing.
No.
But I don't want that anymore. I don't want to have to try and distract or deflect, or I want to be able to push into the discomfort of, okay, how can I tend to myself and then find out how I would like to move forward?
That's right. Yes, that's exactly right. So it's making that sort of space where you can just have perspective on that sort of desire. What's happening there? So it just kind of, you can exhale and go, just pause. Can we pause?
So it takes away some distraction. It takes away disordered desires. What was the middle one?
At the belief that I am what I do.
Okay, so yeah, which is like never ending. Eh?
I know.
If you are what you do, you just have to keep busy the whole time.
That's right. So there's a sense of busyness that just keeps going. So it takes those things away.
What does it give to us?
So it basically, it gives us basically the stillness within the self.
Ooh, okay. So quiet within my
The quiet within your being, and that can come in different forms. So it's it could be mental, could be sometimes emotional, and then it creates stillness within the self. And so when we can be open to that stillness within the self, then we can be open to perhaps a sense of another. So I would call it the creator, or sense of God or divine spirit, something that holds us in love and speaks to us. But what happens if you can stay in it a bit longer, I have found for me, it's opened up the space for joy and delight and wonder. And that is really what feeds my soul.
I don't think I like the sound of any of those. Joy and delight and wonder. No. I don't need any more. That's just like, I just can't like wipe the grin off my face when you're saying that. Because, I mean, there are a few barriers to getting into silence, right? There are a few.
There are.
As a spiritual director, as a person who's sort of counselling or supporting people who want more silence in their life, what are the barriers that come up all the time?
Yes.
Like, what are the common ones?
Yes. So the most common one is I don't have time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have time. I'm just so busy. I just don't have time. So that's the first one. The second one is, what am I actually doing? What am I actually doing? Is this a thing? Like, what is happening here? I need something to happen. And so I can't put my finger on it, so I must not be doing anything. And so that's the second one.
So the unknown, no cognitive comprehension. This is contained and defined, and I can put it in a little bit.
That's right. And then I can explain it. I can explain what happens, and this is what I do. It becomes difficult to understand what I'm actually doing. The third one is I'm afraid of what might come up if I do it. So there might be memories, or there might be fears, or childhood hurts, or my sense of identity will shift. If I'm quiet or enter into the stillness long enough, stuff's going to come up, and I just don't want to go there. So that's the third one.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it does. And then the fourth one is this fear of it's kind of hard to explain, but it's a fear of sort of nothingness.
What if there's nothing?
What if there's nothing?
If I sink down and find nothing?
Nothing. And it's empty, void. So there's this fear of sort of almost like the eradication of the self. The self becomes split apart, and there's nothing.
Or lost in a void.
That's right.
Which, and a void sounds like a pretty hopeless, dark, empty space.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so those are the barriers. They're decent barriers.
Yep.
What do people tend to find when they engage with silence
Yes.
actively?
Great question. So when they actually go into the silence, and I'm speaking probably in my spiritual direction hat on, so I'm with them in the silence. We're having a conversation, and I say, how would it be for you if we could just be in the silence and I will be here with you, and we're just together? So we do that. And then I say, what did you notice after 5 minutes? And I will hold the space for them. And I'll say, you just got a few more moments and you will come out of the silence and then we'll talk. So I just kind of do a bit of a
Guided silence.
Guided silence. And so what happens is they're surprised. It's not lonely. It doesn't have a sense of void or nothingness. It doesn't feel dark. Now, there are moments where I have had a few, actually, this is not normal. It's just a few where they go, that was scary. And we unpack that. But I'd say 99% of them go, oh, that was really nice. I could breathe. I could exhale. And it wasn't lonely. And you were here with me. And wow, something was speaking to me. It's that sort of feeling.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's pretty cool.
it is. And it's a gift to be with them in that space. Yeah.
And it took 5 minutes.
It took 5 minutes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it feels rich for them. There's a sense of like holiness or even sacredness
Yeah.
about that. That feels profound.
So if somebody wants to have a go and they don't happen to have you as their spiritual director, as a bit of a summary, how would you suggest? What would you say
Yeah.
is a good place to start?
Yeah. I would say just take some space. It doesn't have to be long. It can be 2 minutes. It can be 5 minutes. Maybe sometimes I find lighting a candle and sitting, putting the devices aside, even putting down books or notes aside, just being. And then sometimes I say, you can close your eyes if you want, but perhaps open your hands and just a posture of receiving what might happen.
So like palms face up in your lap kind of vibes.
That's right. Yeah. So being
It makes a difference actually. The way you
yes,
the way you position your body does
posture.
tell your mind and your spirit something.
Yes, we're doing something different here,
Yeah.
just for a few moments. And then just notice what you notice. Just be with the silence. It's okay for you to have monkey mind, monkey brain where it sort of jumps around like, what am I having for dinner? And have I done the washing? Oh, I need to bring it inside because it's raining. All those sorts of things. Just being with it. And sometimes I visualize for myself. I visualize myself descending into a warm, beautiful glowworm cave. So I help myself go, okay, we're descending the cave, we're walking down or we're going down, and we're going to get to the bottom, and there's a gentleness there. And then we don't know what will come up, but there's glowworms, and it's lit from within. And so we're just going to be with what's there in the cave. And then there's love there. So I kind of do that as a visualization for myself. And sometimes I suggest that cave might not be the thing for them.
Yeah, no, I think people can find what would be your safe, warm space that was full of love.
Exactly.
Oh, yay. I like it. This is so good because we're actually going to try silence out on this podcast. Is there anything you'd like to say, like as a summary of silence? Is there any last things you'd like to add?
I would just say making space for silence makes space for you to be renamed back to your true self.
Oh, can you unpack that for me?
Sure. So as a spiritual director, I believe that there's a sense of God with us. And in my senses, we are renamed by God. And silence is a way in which we can step into that space by taking part in the silence. And God does that renaming, I think. So if we're making space for silence, we're making space for God to rename us to our true selves. And it's a time where we bring our loving attention to ourselves and to God.
So this renaming, it's outside of any maid identity. It's outside of any mum, wife,
That's right.
husband, father, brother, sister, mother,
Totally.
daughter. It's outside of any label, any
Yes.
lawyer, doctor,
Yep.
worker,
All the things you carry and hold.
any
Yep.
winner of the race in 1974. It's like outside of all achievement, isn't
Yes,
it?
it is.
It's inside of.
Totally. It's the core. It's the core. And it's for me, I've gone to a place where, for me, I was renamed by God as I've come home to God. You've come home. And that sort of was like opening the door in the wardrobe and stepping in.
Narnia style.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, we need to talk more. Oh, Rachel Kitchens, thank you so much for sharing your experience and wisdom on silence with us today.
Thank you.
And you also brought along a poem, so we're now going to hear Summer Day by Mary Oliver to take us a little deeper into the joys and wonders and delights.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean, the one who has flung herself out of the grass, the one who is eating sugar out of my hand, who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who is gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I have been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last, and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?
The Summer's Day by Mary Oliver. Oh, I do love a good poem, just to put the cat among the pigeons. And my friends, the idea of practicing silence is putting the cat among the pigeons. There are plenty of pigeons. They are all the things we need and want to do, and all the noises and the things other people need and want us to do, and all the absence of the need. It's everything. And one idea, I guess, a way to take a step towards silence, because we know silence isn't the absence of any noise, is to embrace the idea of having a kind of a timer. And this isn't, I'm not talking about setting a timer on your phone, but because silence is tough, what about trying to quiet our minds for as long as it takes to boil water for a cup of tea or coffee? So I have bought my jug in from home, and I have, check it, yes, there's water in there. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the jug on. I've got a cup and a tea bag. Feel free to pause the podcast and grab your own tea and cup. But we're going to listen to this jug boil together. And I'm going to invite you to still your mind and quiet your mind. Now, this doesn't mean that you won't have lots of thoughts like, I really ought to be getting on, or gosh, this jug is taking a long time, or oh, what about, or dinner needs to be, or I forgot to. Just any time a thought comes into your mind, notice it, like, oh, there's a thought, and then just let it float away. So it doesn't matter how many times that happens. You're just like, oh, I thought, yes. And then you can go back to perhaps focusing on the boiling of the jug, knowing that it will come to an end. So, hey, let's try this together. Here we go. Obviously, at the beginning, it's going to be quite quiet. So, I don't know about you, but I quite loved it. Let me talk you through what happened for me. I was relieved when the jug started making noise, and I thought for a moment on a word, and the word was thank you, like thank you for this moment. And then thoughts came in. What am I going to say when this is over? And what will I, just thoughts came, and I was like, oh, it's okay. The thoughts are there. Then I returned to the thank you, and then the word that landed for me was a moment. And it felt like the pressure inside my ears and my head was building, like the jug. And yet the moment, just holding on to this idea of a moment, was quite wonderful. I'll make a cup of tea while we talk. And this moment, honestly, became like a place of peace. And then, I'm sure you heard it too, the jug sound changed and there was less pressure and there was sort of a sense of relief. And I felt the same thing, a sense of relief. I really enjoyed that. It made me, and I want you to know that my palms were pressed together resting in between my knees, but doing this kind of a thing with an open posture, like your hands open, is a wonderful thing because your body communicates to your mind and to your emotions, and it says things like, oh, I'm open, or I'm curious, or I'm alive too. So you can help your brain by allowing your body to talk to it. But cheers, here's to a meditative, silent cup of tea. Let's do that again sometime.
Food for the Soul on Sunday Sanctuary with Petra Bagust.
Something I realised, but I want it to sink in, is that everybody responds to silence differently. And there isn't a correct and an incorrect response. There are just responses. So at the end of the kōrero with Rachel Kitchens, I invited her to do a guided silence with our producer, Josh Couch. And this is them reflecting on that practice.
So, how was that?
That was, or actually, like parts of it that were like harder than I anticipated.
Sure. Tell me about that.
I mean, I even just physically, like, it's like, just keep on breathing. I was like, I stopped breathing. Wait, how do you breathe again?
Right.
I kind of, I don't know how I kind of missed. And then I felt this weird like insecurity about how I'm breathing.
Yeah.
I did get a little more comfortable with it, and my mind was darting around to a bunch of different things.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it felt kind of like internal noise rather than kind of these external stimuli. It wasn't exactly like full ideas or fully formed thoughts. It just felt very fragmented.
Yeah.
A bunch of different things, options in a sense of,
Yes.
where
you could go.
I could go down this way or that
Yes.
way. My attention could go all over the place. Yeah.
So what did you notice when you started to go down that?
I think there was almost like a guilt, like, I'm getting distracted.
Right.
I've got to come back.
Come back to something. Yeah, sure.
So I probably, was a bit harsh with myself there on that, which was interesting. But yeah, just coming back and to the silence, it was kind of hard without something to focus on,
Yeah, sure.
So I just thought I'd choose a like phrase.
Yeah,
And so
right.
I used the phrase that I've used before, Lord, here I am.
Yeah.
Lord, here I am.
Yes.
Just something.
So it was like an
I'm
anchor.
right here. Yeah.
Right.
This is
So
where
it's
I
like
am.
an anchor to come back.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Can I ask how long you thought that was?
It felt like a long time. I don't know. I really lost track
of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was a minute.
Really?
It was a minute of silence.
Seriously, I thought it was probably like close to 5. Like,
Yeah.
was this 4 or 5 minutes?
Yeah. So I introduced you with my voice, and it was a minute of silence. And then when I did my gentle nudge of like, okay, just a few more moments,
Yeah.
that was 15 seconds.
Wow. Okay.
And then I said, when you're ready, you can come back. And that was
Yeah.
another 15. So all
Okay.
up, about a minute and a half.
Minute and a half. My goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm.
Yeah, that felt like a lot longer.
A lot longer.
Yeah.
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 Anything that you want to consider out of this space from the minute and a half? Or for maybe going forward? Like what would there be any kind of like noticing that you want to?
I think one of the things I noticed was it was coming out of it. I've felt kind of refreshed, which was interesting.
Okay.
Because I didn't anticipate that with the feelings in the midst of it.
Sure.
Feeling
Like,
distracted, insecure, all these like things like that.
yeah.
But actually, the coming out, I was like, there's a spaciousness and sense of refreshment to it, which was interesting.
Wow. And you didn't really expect that.
No.
So a bit of a surprise.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, there you
Really
go.
good. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Anytime.
Ooh, it's so good. Feel free to share this episode as well with anyone you think would like a little more silence in their lives or could benefit from it. And hey, if you're a rating, reviewing type of soul, then that makes a difference to us. And we'd love you to find the rate button and push as many stars as you can spare and review us. That would be wonderful. Coming up next, we have a wonderful Atlas of the Heart. We are going to expand our emotional vocabulary by exploring tranquility.
Sunday Sanctuary, a reset for your soul.
Welcome back to Sunday Sanctuary and Grace MacArthur. It's always a pleasure to see your face.
Yours too.
And I love what we're doing here because I was talking to a wise woman the other day and she said, unless we have the language to name, identify, comprehend the emotions that we are feeling, the things that we are going through, how can we tend to them, care for them, process them even? So there isn't healing, she was suggesting, for emotions we can't name. And what we do each time we talk, using Brene Brown's Atlas of the Heart, is increase our emotional vocabulary, which I love. Today, we're talking about silence, which has this beautiful irony to it. And we've just done a silence practice. And silence sort of raises anxiety for a lot of people. So what emotion are we doing today?
Well, funnily enough, we're not doing anxiety, even though, yes, silence does kind of make the heart rate go up a little bit or make you just feel a bit like, oh, I don't want to sit here with these thoughts that come up. The emotion that we're exploring today is tranquility. And I've never really even thought of this as an emotion as much. I kind of just think, oh, that's very tranquil. Like more like
it's out there.
Yeah, it's not something that I feel or have. But I think this is a great one. And the research definition is tranquility is associated with the absence of demand and no pressure to do anything.
The absence of demand and no pressure to do anything.
How good is that?
Oh, that's utopia. I like what you said about tranquility because I think of, that's a tranquil lake or that's a tranquil scene, not I am tranquil.
Yeah. And interestingly, that's sort of where Brene goes in describing tranquility, is that it actually is associated with environment. So researchers talk about tranquil environments and how these environments can help us sort of counter the impact of mental fatigue or struggling to hold our attention onto something. So silent, like when you're trying to stay silent, it could be really hard to hold your attention and to not let your mind wander unless you're wanting your mind to wander. But the tranquil environments can help with that. So there's 4 items, which is a sense of getting away, a feeling of immersion, holding attention without effort, and the environment being compatible with your preferences. So if you love the lake, being at the lake, a sense of getting away from your day-to-day life, you're immersed in the sounds and the smells and the sensations of being out in nature, and you can hold attention without effort because you can look at the lake, at the birds, at the trees, and that is a really tranquil environment and helps increase that feeling of tranquility inside of us while sort of in concert with the environment that we're in.
That's so interesting you say that because this past weekend I was dropping a child to a sport camp and so it was back and forward and back and forward. And in one of them I thought, I'm just going to go to the beach and I'm just going to take my magazine which it turns out was like 3 months old because I hadn't got to it, And I ordered a lemon and honey drink and drank it all. And then I ordered myself a coffee and drank it all. And the beach was happening, but I was there with a magazine and I really felt restorative. It was probably quite tranquil. Yeah.
And a really interesting distinction that Brene makes is that we may think of tranquility as similar to contentment, but they are quite distinct because contentment, we have that sense of having completed something or achieved something or gained something. I feel content with what I have, where I am, that sort of thing, which is a great feeling. But tranquility, we simply relish the feeling of doing nothing.
Oh,
which is what you were experiencing. When you're sitting there drinking your drink, like, you're not necessarily achieving anything grand. You may not feel content, but you do feel that tranquility of just sitting and doing nothing.
I was relishing reading a magazine. I didn't finish the magazine, not even by half. Like, I didn't even finish the main article I was reading, but it wasn't really about that. It was like, here I am reading by the sea. It was, wow, that's so interesting. And I guess in essence, because I didn't know anyone in the cafes that I was in, it was almost like a silence practice, although I was reading. But that's a lovely idea. So just run us through the 4 points again to achieve tranquility or to consider when we're in tranquility or looking
a
for
sense of getting away. So she actually says that urban settings are not as conducive to tranquility.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So nature and low levels of noise have been found. So fields and forests and large bodies of water.
Yep.
So a sense of getting away from your normal, a feeling of immersion.
So being surrounded by that space, lovely.
I think nature helps you do because you are the odd one out in that setting and you can just feel immersed by everything around you. Holding attention without effort. So I think that they all sort of work together because when you're immersed in something and there's all of these different things around you, it's not hard to just sit and watch a bird. But when you're in a busy city, there's all of these things that are grabbing at your attention. Or if you're sitting at your desk and trying to have a moment of silence, you've got your computer there, you've got your to-do list on your pad next to you. You can't hold attention to the beauty of the moment you're trying to curate. And then the last one is compatibility with one's preferences.
Right.
So you might not like the lake, but you might love the bush.
And I do wonder actually if you could create a tranquil space inside your home in a nice environment with a fire or next to a heater. Like I can imagine, turning all the devices, sound notifications off, grabbing a rug, grabbing a hot water bottle or a nice cup of tea and being tranquil, being immersed inside of a comforting space.
Lighting a candle, that's a good thing to focus on, having just looking at the flame. Yeah, there are definitely ways to do it.
Okay, cool.
Voice cancelling headphones.
Yeah. Nice. Brilliant. Well, thank you for expounding on tranquility. I'm going to try it out intentionally. I'm going to go have a tranquil practice.
Great.
Thanks heaps, Grace. Now we're going to do community life, which is always a fave of mine. And I thought I would also share this article that I found, and it's about a city called São Paulo, and it introduced a clean city law and essentially said, time for all the visual noise to be taken down. So over 15,000 billboards were taken down, and additionally, 300,000 ostentatious business signs, which, were hanging over streets or painted in large letters or on facades of buildings. They were also removed. And, there was a period of adjustment and people were worried. But what has been discovered in São Paulo is not only the beautiful architecture that can now be seen, but also some of the city's needs. So places that needed the city's attention. If you want to read the article and see the pictures, visit 99percentinvisible.org and it's all there. But this was, in effect, an act of reducing visual noise, and it has had a profound impact. Now, when we asked you Where do you find spaces of silence or stillness in your everyday life? Because let's face it, that's where we live in our everyday lives. This is what you said. Sitting on the back steps, looking out over my back garden, soaking in the creativity and its beauty. Thanks, Linda. What about this? Sometimes in the in-between, in the car while waiting in the driveway after coming home from work, but before entering the busy household, after the school run, before jumping into the work meetings and emails with a quiet coffee. Pip says it's snatched. And Pip, that sounds like a golden opportunity. You are snatching moments of silence in your everyday life. Monica said, when I'm opening up the curtains and windows in the morning. Ooh, I'm going to try that. My front porch, said Jane. The car drive home from work, said Hannah. Jolene said, between the things I have to do each day, luckily I'm in paid employment part-time. Inside a cup of Milo. Or what about breakfast, sitting at the table, watching the birds in the backyard, no agenda. Alicia said, in my lounge chair that is saturated with sun most mornings, it's here I meditate. And Steph says, working on getting up a little earlier in the mornings to try and add some stillness to my day. Sandra said, my commute, I make sure I notice nature, the sky, the trees, the sea. The toilet? Ha! Hashtag kid life, says Lee. Tell me about it. It is a memory. My teenagers don't follow me to the loo, so Lee, it will end. Natalie said, meditation practice, sitting in a quiet house, looking out at the garden. I live in a 9th floor apartment block in the Auckland CBD. A small area close to the balcony door is the perfect space to sit each morning, breathe in the crisp morning air, and contemplate on the day ahead. And then each evening to say a prayer of gratitude for the day and all it provided. Rachel said climbing because you have to be fully present in the moment and the brain switches off. That's so true when you can be present in your body and give your thinking mind a break. Sheila said stargazing, amazed in wonder. Car rides till kohanga, drop off. My morning cuppa before the house/world wakes up, said Lisa. And finally, Hannah, when I get a spinning wheel on my computer, I take it as an invitation to breathe and pause. I'm with you. Yes, that's the best. A new interpretation of what I call the spinning wheel of doom. Maybe we'll have to rename it the spinning wheel of pause. Thank you so much for sharing all of your ideas. I love how, as a community, we can learn from one another, be inspired by each other. Now it's time to light a candle. I've got the matches. And let me do this on behalf of you, but if you have a candle, feel free to join me. As you may well know, it is my practice now. I so often light a candle when I go into my office. I mostly remember to blow it out when I leave. Not always. Sometimes I go back to my office hours later and it smells gorgeous. And I think, gosh, I need to blow that out. But here we go. Today, I'm going to light a candle for those of us who struggle to find silence or stillness. So perhaps it's for all of us. And as I light each of the wicks of this candle, which has 3 wicks, which is potentially symbolic, I'm just going to take a moment to think about us together, sometimes finding ease and sometimes struggling, to take a moment to meet our needs, to find peace, to find a place of stillness. Gosh, candlelight's gorgeous. Right. I'm going to set that to the side because now I'd love to welcome Spanky Moore back to the podcast. And can I just say, Spanky, today, you have some really nice light on your face.
Yeah, well, that light just appeared, didn't it, Petra?
It did.
It wasn't there.
It wasn't there when...
And now I've got I've got dappled
I
light.
quite like it. I quite like the
like it?
dappled. I like the dappled light. It gives you a Shroud of Turin appearance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I like. I think.
If the Shroud of Turin had been wearing glasses.
Yeah.
Hey, look, I'm looking forward to our chat today. Thanks for joining me on Sunday Sanctuary, where we talk about silence. Yes, there is a little bit of an irony there, a nod to humour, perhaps.
Petra, in the radio business, what do we call silence?
Dead air.
That's right. It's called dead air. It's not. I worked in student radio, so we had a lot of dead air, but generally it was something to be avoided.
At all costs.
Yeah.
So today we are going to mess. We're going to mess with the podcast format even and have moments of silence. But you and I are going to talk about it. So allow me to start like this with a quote from Thomas Merton. In a world of noise, confusion and conflict, it is necessary that there be places of silence, inner discipline and peace. In such places, love can blossom. The world has forgotten the joys of silence, the peace of solitude, which are necessary to some extent for the fullness of human living. Ooh, it's a whittle. It's a bit of a challenge.
Nice, isn't it?
It's nice. Thanks for supplying me with that quote.
Yeah. Well, Thomas Merton, I think he was a very famous contemplative writer, and I think probably back in the 60s he was writing. And the interesting thing around what he says, Petra, is even back then he was acknowledging all the distractions, in the world. This is before fax machines, before the internet, before social media, before any of these other things. And even he was noticing those changes and that maybe we needed to lean into silence and solitude. So if he thought it back then, how much more so now, I guess?
Yeah, and I've seen a quote from Socrates who said the youth of today are just so distracted by everything, So maybe this is the human condition and all these extraneous things. So can I ask you personally when you first experienced silence?
Yeah, I am an extrovert. And so there can be a tendency that introverts sort of talk around the requirement of silence and extroverts say it just doesn't suit them. And the reality is that extroverts probably need silence more because they tend to shy away from it. And so my first experience with silence was I'm an ordained Anglican minister, and I was working in student radio doing the breakfast show at the time when I was about to be ordained. And so I had to take a week off my show. Can you imagine telling a student radio audience, hey guys, I'm just going to quit and take a week off. I'm going to be ordained and I have to do a quick silent retreat. And so the bishop that was sort of looking after me at the time, she was really into contemplative silent stuff. I had no idea about it. And so she said, you've got to go on a silent retreat. I turned up to this retreat and it hadn't clicked, it was silent. And so I turned up to this retreat from my radio show, actually. And suddenly the leader of the retreat said, all right, guys, we're going to go to our room and we're going to begin the 5-day silence now. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh. Actually, I did swear to myself. I think I was like, oh, okay, well, how bad can it be? So I went into my room and I started to become incredibly angry. Mm. Very, very angry. And there's a few reasons I became angry. One part I was like, who is this bishop to put her spirituality on me? I'm a doer. So there's this whole kind of, I'm someone that gets stuff done, not someone that goes on retreats. But then I pushed into a deeper problem, which was without doing stuff and without noise, I actually didn't know who I was. And I underwent a profound identity crisis. And I was so angry. For 24 hours, Petra, I was irate. But it's very hard. You've got to pace yourself if you're going to be angry for 5 days. And I didn't pace myself. And I used up all my anger in 24 hours. And at some point I said, okay, I give up. I have to give in to it. And it was very, very challenging experience. And I'm not saying most people listening here will go on a 5-day silent retreat, but it was a very challenging experience. But I discovered a whole part of joy and a whole part of myself that I would never have discovered unless I'd embraced. Did I embrace silence? Unless I was thrown into it.
Endured. Endured.
Silence. Yeah, but since then I have found it a very beautiful thing. So I'm right on board with it.
So you've returned to silence as a practice?
Yeah, well, so as a practice, I've got 3 little kids, and so
there's not much silence.
There's a funny part around what does that mean in your own life. But what happened from that first experience is I started to take young adults away on silent retreats. And
cool.
so, these were people whom often hadn't experienced much silence. They hadn't been away from their phone. They're kind of living in the city in a world of a lot of noise. And so, I don't know, like over the past 7 years, maybe we've taken away 300 young adults away on these unplugged silent retreats, and more people want to do them than you can keep up with. And so it has become a big part of my journey has been how do I help guide particularly younger people into a space where they feel very scared. They feel very vulnerable about going into that space.
Okay. Has there been something that you've noticed? I mean, everybody's unique, right? But out of the 300 people who have been through the silent retreats, have you noticed like, oh my goodness, there tends to be this feeling of something at the end, or have most people managed to embrace what is quite a challenge in our society, the idea of silence?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of different ways to engage in silence, but we do a 3-day silent retreat, and so it's hard for almost everyone.
Okay, that's good to know, eh? That's good to know. It's hard for us.
So it's hard for everyone. There are very few people there are a few that go, oh, it was just amazing. But there's a sense of it being like a kind of an internal, outward bound, how they take you out and they stretch you. It's the equivalent of that in a kind of a spiritual or an internal sense. And so there's a real struggle. And let me tell you what the struggle is. I think there's 3 struggles, and I hope this doesn't freak anyone out too much. But back in like 300 AD, there was these people called the Desert Fathers, and they used to run off into the desert and live in caves and spend years in silence. They probably had some mental health conditions, Petra, but there's also ways to romanticize it. And so, one of the things they discovered is when they went off into these spaces, they were faced with 3 things. Mm-hmm. They were faced with themselves, which was really hard. Mm-hmm. They were faced with the divine, so sort of this voice of love and affirmation, and they were faced with what they call the devil, but like the dark voices that would come at them, and there was nowhere to hide in the wilderness. There's nowhere to hide, and people have found that when they head into silence on our retreats, is the silence isn't the problem. When you go on a silent retreat, everyone goes, oh my goodness, I couldn't imagine not talking for that long. But that's the least of your worries. What you discover is you're left with yourself. And if you don't like yourself, that's very hard. And I think most of us do struggle to like ourselves. But then also in it, they discover that there is actually a sense of great hope and life that actually comes out of it as well. So over the retreats I run, you see that just over and over again. People coming in, going hard, going, oh, I can do this easy, kind of struggle in the middle, existential crisis, and then they pop out the other side with a new understanding of what stillness might look like in their life. So it's a beautiful thing to see, but it's quite, it's a bit of an arm wrestle.
It's real, it's gritty, gristly.
Oh, yeah, and there's
Chilly.
a guy, Richard Rohr, in his book Everything Belongs, where he talks a bit about this. He says this, he says, we wait in silence. In silence, all our usual patterns assault us. Our patterns of control, addiction, negativity, tension, anger, and fear assert themselves. That's why most people give up rather quickly. He says, when Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness, the first thing that showed up were the wild beasts. And so he says, silence is not first of all consoling, it's only real. And so that's, I think, why people avoid it. I mean, that's why when I drive along in the car, I find my hand continually turning on the radio, even when I want to have silence, because I experience myself and I experience feelings I don't always know what to do with. And I think silence really flushes that stuff out and helps you to confront it.
Okay, so can we take it a level deeper and talk specifically about silence? Because ultimately, silence isn't the point, is it? It's the conduit. It's the means.
Yeah, that's right. I think silence is the means that helps you. It begins to surface all the joys and the difficulties, and then it helps you move towards stillness. So stillness is really what the point of silence is.
And I've heard you use an analogy like silence is like paint.
Yeah, that's right. I think people can sort of obsess on silence as if it's, where it's all about the paint, when really what you're trying to do is look at the painting, and stillness, a sense of actually being able to be present despite the struggles, despite some of the emotions and the feelings that you might be having, and to actually come to a place of peace and restedness in the present moment. That's the wrestle when you're engaging. It's really about coming to a place of how can I be still. That's very hard, Petra. I'm not saying it's easy.
Spanky, how can I be still? So the spiritual practice of being still.
Yes.
Give us some clues. How could I? Because I know for myself, I go, I'm terrible at practicing stillness or meditation or mindfulness, or I'm terrible at just being still.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, so therefore that's a good excuse not to do it because I'm not good at it. I don't have to do it. Or I feel guilty if I try and focus for a while on the divine, and my mind wanders off, and then I'm so I'm bad.
Well, yeah, okay. Well, I mean, there's a few parts to that. Firstly, there's just benefit. Can I say, without jumping into a great big practice, you know what I mean? Where it's like, I've got to do it for half an hour, or I don't do it at all.
Yeah.
St. Benedict used to say, pray as you can, not as you can't. And I would say, you practice silence as you can, not as you can't. I have little kids, and so that might mean 1 minute sitting in the sunshine. That's really good. I just want to say that's good.
Yeah.
The only outcome that's bad, it's to come to a point of beating up on yourself saying, aren't I useless? I can't do it. That is a bad outcome. Any other outcome is good. So one of the challenges is to have great compassion with yourself and to sit there and say, well, I'm probably not going to be very good at stilling my mind, because one of the things around our mind is it's designed to be creative. It's designed to think, and it's also designed to think about things that bring fear. It's got a bias towards thinking about things that bring fear. So what we're trying to do when we still ourselves in silence is we're trying to kind of keep that fear in check. And yet it kind of comes racing back, it comes roaring on in the silence. And so one of the things you can do is you have to give your mind something to hold on to, whether that's a word, whether that's bringing your attention to breath, whether it's imagining that you can feel sort of the loving warmth of the divine looking down upon you. You need something that helps sort of ground you in that present moment. And then you need to not beat up on yourself, and you need to say, I've done my best. And so that's a lot of practice. It takes quite a bit of practice.
That sounds like a good starting point to me. And it sounds like even what I've done is, like I was trying to do a contemplative piece before a big gig a while back, and I was like, I just haven't done it enough. I haven't achieved enough contemplation to have been of any effect. And a dear friend said to me, if you bring it to mind, that counts. Like it counts that you register even, yes, this desire or the divine or the healing or the hope or the love that I was trying to access. It was like, even just bringing it to my, she said 20 seconds, all good. And I was like, actually, yes, if I don't have to beat up on myself. And so now if I notice myself wandering off, if I was trying to practice silence, which I very occasionally do, I'm like, that's it, my mind's wandering off. And I just invite my mind to come back.
One of my guys who mentored me in some of this stuff and introduced me to it, he said, when you're engaging in silence and stillness, it's one of the few things where whatever happens is good. Because if you manage to actually rest your mind, say for 20 minutes, he's like, wow, how amazing is that? You go, that's true. That's amazing. I can't do that. That's amazing. He said, but if you get distracted 1,000 times, but you bring your attention back to the divine, or you bring your attention back just to the practice, he said, when was the last time you did 1,000 awesome things? So he said it's as much about continually bringing your attention back if you're distracted, because some days you will be, or sometimes you manage to actually be in the zone, almost by a grace beyond ourselves. You manage to actually be there in the zone. But it is hard, but it's super rewarding.
Yeah.
And it's actually, in one part it's easier than you think, and another part it's harder. It's harder than you think.
Well, this is my theory, right? I'm like, this is good stuff. And
It's
silence,
very good.
and it's free. It's free, and it's accessible. I don't need any gear. I don't need. So I feel like even just talking about it more for Sunday Sanctuary invigorates me to want it, and so I understand that it's free and it's accessible and it's good, but it is also hard. And it's a practice. So how to just engage with that discomfort of the newness or the hardness or the unknown, and just actually keep going.
One of these retreats I took away on, we went up to a place out of Geraldine called Peel Forest, beautiful place. You have to walk up a track. It's surrounded by bush, and we're sort of in this hut that's off the grid with solar power. Composting toilets. It's exactly where you want to do a silent retreat.
Absolutely.
And we turned up, and we got people to kind of still themselves in the silence for the first 20 minutes. And we're in this. I've come away from my family, got these 20 people that have come away. It takes a lot of energy. You can get quite stressed out running a silent retreat. So here we go. You're right. So a lot of energy. And we sit there to do our first sort of stillness practice. And would you believe that some birds have built a nest right up in the roof, and every 40 seconds the mother bird would bring a worm back, and the kind of chicks would go, that thing where it's also irregular, and then it would calm down, and then they'd do it again. And I was just getting more and more infuriated because, Petra, I'd taken all these people away, and we're coming to enjoy nature and to rest and relax and enjoy the silence. And these birds were bloody ruining this tranquility of nature. And so I, after that meditation, I said to a friend of mine, get me a ladder. I am not letting those birds ruin this retreat. I'm going to get them. And so we got a ladder, and he was there saying, this is a bad idea, Spanky. This is a bad idea. And I was like, I'm going to kill the birds. So I climbed up on this ladder, and I was like, pass me a shovel. And I got a shovel, but they were tucked away in such a place that I could not get to them. I could not kill them. I could not smite them as I wished to for the sake of silence. And one of the things that happened over that retreat is by the next day, you couldn't hear the birds. And one of the things is, remember, silence isn't about silence. You're not trying to aim for perfect silence. You can't sit there saying, oh, God, the trees are a bit loud, or there's someone blowing a leaf blower and I haven't got the perfect silence. I only have perfect silence. It's like there is no such thing as perfect silence. There's always someone snoring and there's always a noise. Part of it is that you come to be able to accept the silence within the noise and that you find stillness in it. So I wouldn't want people to start obsessing over finding the perfect silence. Yes, having 3 kids is probably unhelpful, but in the end, you discover a clicking, a clock that's clicking too loud. You discover the wind. Even the wind is distracting. Nature's so distracting. Those birds are so, but you come to settle into that. When you first go into silence, your ears are very sensitive, but like taking a shave, and going into the wind for the first time.
I don't know, but yes.
Well, I didn't want to presume anything, but anyways, yeah. But in the end, you do adjust and you settle, and so I wouldn't want people to get obsessed again with silence in the silence.
Nice.
Yeah.
Hey, that's super awesome. I feel like we've got some really beautiful things, and I guess to round it out, we are aiming to sit in the loving gaze of the divine.
That's right.
In the loving gaze of.
I can sometimes just feel the warmth. Sometimes I just sit there and I go, all right, I just want to feel the loving gaze. For me, I'm a Christian, the loving gaze of God, and I can feel the warmth on my face, and that helps me be present. And I can just sunbathe in that for 20 minutes.
Wow.
And it's a delight.
Yeah, to know that you're loved just as you are.
Nice.
Yeah.
But sometimes I start to love myself, so it's quite nice to feel loved.
Yeah,
you know?
it's very nice. I think we all struggle to love ourselves sometimes. Reverend Spanky Moore, thanks so much for giving us some tips and tools and insights into silence and stillness and being loved. My feeling is we're getting somewhere. We're digging into this idea of silence more and more. This is good because coming up, we're going to do another silence exercise. This time, though, we won't have a kettle, we won't have background music. We're going to do an actual silence with audio silence, but also like, I'm looking forward to it. Join us.
Sunday Sanctuary, your mug of goodness.
Okay, team, it feels like we are actually making this practice a reality. We're learning about silence, exploring silence, sharing our ideas about silence, practicing it with guides. And now let's have an actual silence that is audio silence. And this is how we'll set it up. Well, basically, there'll be a ding at the start to say, okay, now we're going to be silent. It's going to be 3 minutes long. There'll be a ding in the middle at the 1 minute 30 mark, and then a ding to close us out. So I'm going to invite you to get comfy, to basically find a position or place where your body can be. So if you're standing comfortably. If you're sitting comfortably. Your hands are open, or relaxed, however you'd feel comfortable having them. And again, you can focus on your breath or on a word. So you might choose a word like grateful or thankful, or you might choose a word that, resonates with you. It might be a phrase, but there's no right and wrong. But if you're able to be comfortable and in your body, then that will be helpful. So here we go. How was that for you? I know for me, I felt my body relaxing, more surrendering. A word I might use would be letting go. I'd love to hear how it was for you. Feel free to message me or just Skype to whoever you see next that you've practiced silence twice today. Because, I don't know, somehow it almost felt like changing my relationship with time. It felt, almost like a waking nap. Like, you know how you can nap for 20 minutes and it revives you for 3 to 4 hours, or you can sleep all night and you've got a day. I don't know. I felt like the time was dense, I think. I hope you enjoyed that. And if it was crunchy, if it was confronting, that's okay. It's like, let the silence meet you where you're at, because where you're at is just exactly where you need to be. And it's good to be where you're at. I'd love now for us to do communion together. And in essence, we reflect on communion in Sunday Sanctuary, as has become our custom. And we're going to reflect on this ancient practice, which was a ritual instituted by Jesus Christ the night before he was executed. And Jesus was actually really, really intentional about seeking out spaces of silence in his life. Like, he's the guy who's known for these profound things he said and did, the miracles, the crowds, just the political uproar that he caused, protests, disorder amongst his own religious sects. He was like a disruptor. But the writers of the historical accounts of Jesus all repeatedly record moments where Jesus decided to take himself away. What you could call withdrawing. He withdrew from the crowds. He took himself away from the noise and the bustle. He withdrew to solitary and quiet places for solitude and quiet. And I don't think it was because he was an introvert necessarily, but rather that he had a physical need. People had taken a lot out of him. He'd given a lot out. He was worn out, perhaps. But also that the practice of withdrawing, of seeking silence and quiet, is actually preparatory. It's something you do to resource yourself or to prepare for something big. And one of the reasons you can assume this about Jesus is because the times when he did withdraw, the times when he took himself away from the crowds and the teaching and the preaching, was to fast and pray in the desert. And it feels like this was a hard thing for him to do, but it was this intentional time of preparation before he really kicked off his work in the world. So this whole period of working that he did was prepared for by silence and quiet. And at the end of his time working, he gathered all his friends around a table for one last meal together. And it was a celebration. Basically, everyone in Jerusalem was gathering for a Jewish festival called Passover. And on that final night of feasting with his friends, he reinterprets the whole reason for the gathering. He injects himself into the very center of the narrative and invites everyone to enter into wholeness, to enter into love through the sacrifice he was about to make. Now, when I say invites everyone, not just the people he had in that room, not just Jews, not just people in the time and space that he lived in, but everyone, anyone, to enter in to unadulterated, unconditional love. And today, the tradition of communion that he inaugurated back then has become a practice of silence in many churches. And there's often some nice music playing while people take bread and take wine and they reflect, but there's not typically a lot of talking. So I guess this idea of silence, it can be tricky, especially when you're trying to connect or seeking connection with an invisible God. But the elements of the bread and wine are useful to focus our attention on. And there are ways in. There are steps or tools or just, I guess, gifts that we can use to get into this resourcing, profound connecting space that silence provides. And we're all invited. I don't know about you, but I have really enjoyed the discovery of the spiritual practice of silence that we've engaged with today. I would call it a haidanga, a journey, truly, because it's a rocky road. Like, I've engaged with it more at times and less at other times, but in pulling this together and in focusing on it, it's like it's bubbling underneath, like it's something that I want more of, and I'm willing to risk doing more of. I'm looking for spaces where I can create or make silence, space to be quiet or still, to connect in and down is how I would describe it, because the feeling is I'm not necessarily pushing myself out, but I'm gathering myself to myself and sitting with the divine inside of me. And I encourage you to take what you've heard and what we've done today and see where it might fit into your space and your life, and bring goodness, bring spaciousness within. So let us close as we do each time with a benediction. And what I decided to do is something that I've heard, and I don't know where I heard it first, but I know it's a line that comes from Scripture, one of the Psalms in the Bible. And if you want to listen along, it starts small and it grows to the full line and then it retracts. So it expands and retracts, much like a breath. So let's do this. Be still. Be still and be still and know. Be still and know that. Be still and know that I. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know that. Be still and know. Be still and be still. Be. Thanks for being with us today. Ka kite anō.